Welcome back to Everyman EDC. In today's video, I'm going to be talking about this knife right here, the Spyderco Dragonfly 2. So this is a knife that has been on the market for a long time. And most people don't even know it's the Dragonfly 2. Most people actually just call it the Dragonfly because it has been on the market so long that most people that are buying knives don't even remember the Dragonfly. This is a knife that I have had for 8 years. And I remember buying this knife because I bought two of them at the same time. I bought one for myself and I bought one for my nephew for his 16th birthday. Well, this week he turned 24 and I thought, you know what, now's a good time for me to do a review on this knife and talk about it. Is it still worth it in 2022? So the Spyderco Dragonfly is a lockback knife. It is, if you open it up, it's about 2¼ inch blade, about 4.5 inches overall length. The knife itself is a full flat grind. This version is a VG10 steel, which there are a ton of different options out there with the Dragonfly. I know some of the ones I can think of right off the top of my head. The H1 version, which is like their salt version of the Dragonfly. Supposedly you be able to use it in saltwater environments, that type of thing. Now, don't give it a bath in salt water, but it should hold up fairly well, with that rust resistance. It also comes in S30V as well as another common steel they've made this knife in. And I'm sure there are other ones that I don't know about right off the top of my head. The particular version I have is the VG10 steel, and that is the most common. And I've got the FRN, and particularly the orange FRN here on my handles. Now, you can get a lot of different handle options and a lot of different colors. So if you do like this knife, there are a ton of different options for you guys. You can check them out. Go ahead and look at them. I'm sure you'll find one that you like if this is a knife you decide you want to purchase. As far as the knife goes, the ergonomics on this knife are absolutely fantastic. With the choil top and bottom and the jimping across both of those, I think this does a really nice job. Fits really well in hand. And you can see the jimping goes all the way down into that FRN handle that, along the back spine there. And so as far as locking it in, being able to hold on to this knife, it does a great job. The blade shape on mine is that spear point, but again, you can get this knife in a lot of different options as far as blade shape. It has a number of different blades and you can get them both serrated or plain edge. Personally, I think this is the one that's the most versatile, but you may have other needs that you want a different blade shape. The Dragonfly is a lockback knife. So this is something that we don't see probably as often in today's market as we did in the past. There's not a ton of lockback blades. And a lockback blade, to me, this is actually a really strong lock. I'm very happy with it. I've never had a lock failure with this. And it's held up really well over the 8 years I've owned this knife. There's really no wiggle in the blade up and down or side to side. So I think the lockback is held up really well. No problems with that at all. Definitely happy with the lockup on this knife. If we take a look at the pocket clip, now the pocket clip is a spring pocket clip, which again, I think a spring pocket clip is great. It is a kind of a deep carry pocket clip. You can drop your knife all the way into the very top of the spring, no problem, or top of the spring pocket clip, I mean. But you will have a little bit of that knife handle that's going to stick out of your pocket, and that may be something you don't like. I think they could have moved that pocket clip a little farther up on the knife handle and it would have sat in your pocket even a little bit deeper, but again, not a huge deal. It is a reversible, and one of the things you'll notice is that it included a screw that I still have for both sides. Now, one thing I don't love about the knife is that screw really does stick up quite a bit on the opposite side of your pocket clip. So the side your pocket clip's on, you don't really notice that screw because the pocket clip is hiding it. But when you flip the knife over to the other side, it definitely does stick up. That being said, it doesn't necessarily cause a problem. It's not necessarily giving you a hot spot in your hand, but I think as far as the form factor, it's just not as nice. So that is something to keep in mind. But again, I don't think it necessarily bothers the function of the knife. These knives are made in Japan, and the blade itself is a full flat grind. Like I mentioned earlier, in my particular version is the VG10 steel. Now, VG10 steel was a very popular steel several years ago. Not something you see quite as often anymore, but it's still, it's still out there. You can still get knives you made in VG10. But the problem with the VG10 to me is that it sharpens fairly easily, but I tend to get a lot of rolled edges with this knife in particular and with this steel in particular. Now, can I clean them up? Can I sharpen it right back up? Absolutely. I don't have a lot of problems with rust, anything like that. So I think the steel is okay, but it's not necessarily the strongest steel when it comes to rolled steel. Now, this knife is not meant probably for hard use a whole lot. It is a small knife, only a 2¼ inch blade there. And with it being small like that, and a very fine tip, it really is meant for precision cutting. So you may not actually be using it in a lot of ways that you would have to worry about maybe some of that steel rolling so much, but that is one thing that I definitely have had a problem with this knife. And in fact, I've needed to actually go back and sharpen this knife for quite a while. And I think that actually goes into the conversation I want to have about this knife. This is a knife that is, when I bought it, I think it was like $55. Right now, the cost on these is right around $75. And for $75, there's a lot of options out there on the market right now. Back when I was getting this, there wasn't nearly as many options out there. And, there were a few knives that were decent at $75, but the Chinese knife companies were not out there that we see now. We have companies like Kaiser and Wee and Civivi, and there's a lot of knives that those different companies are putting out in that price range that are really a pretty high end. As far as 10 years ago, they would have been considered high-end knives. Now, they're right in that range of this, and I'm not sure that the Spyderco Dragonfly has really held up to those kind of competition for the cost there. I think there may be some better options, or at least some other options you want to consider. The other thing I don't love about this knife, now I've mentioned before, I don't like knives that are drop shut, and this is definitely not a drop shut knife at all. That being said, it's not a very smooth knife at all. You can, the plastic or the FR end really kind of grabs a hold of that blade as you open and close it. Not that it's a problem. I mean, opening it, you definitely are not going to be using the spider flick opening method. You're going to be basically riding that thumb all the way through the opening action. And that's fine. It's not necessarily a problem, but it is something that I think I look for now in knives is how smooth are they going to be? And is it matter to the function of the knife? No, not really. But it is something that at $75, there's an awful lot of knives out there that are going to have some very, very smooth action that are going to come open very easily, very quick. And so I don't know that I love that. Part of that is also the lockback design. When you have a lockback design, that means there's going to be a little pressure on the blade all the way through the opening and closing. So there's some of that is by design with the lockback, but I think some of it is also, it doesn't have some of the bearings. And not necessarily I even love bearings, but you can have some bearings, some bronze washers, some things like that that are going to be very smooth and really help a knife opening nicely. And that's just not found here with the Spyderco Dragonfly 2. So after 8 years, the question is, would I buy this knife again? And for me, the answer is no. This actually has been sitting on my shelf for over a year now, needing to be sharpened, and I haven't really picked up. I used to carry this knife regularly, almost daily, and I pretty much stopped carrying it altogether, and I haven't really thought much about it until I saw that my nephew was turning 24 this week. I thought, oh, you know what? That was a long time ago since I bought that Dragonfly. So I figured, now's a good time to talk about it. See what you guys think. It is it's a quality knife. I don't think if you bought it that you'll be upset at your purchase by any means. And there are a lot of different options out there. I just think that there's probably a lot more competition at that price range than there used to be. And I think for me personally, I would be looking at something else. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure you hit that subscribe button.